It was very quiet. I remember there wasn't any wind. And I remember hearing a whistle, and then there was a series of 3 knocks. It sounded like someone hitting a tree with sticks.
Welcome back to Sincerely Supernatural, where we take a look at the strange, the mysterious, and the unexplained, among other things. And today we have a super special episode for you because I get to interview my big brother, my oldest brother, Richard.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Now, you're just here for a short time. You're from Wyoming. That's where you live. Can you tell people a little bit about what you do? Who is this Richard?
I am a stone sculptor, and I sculpt wildlife, primarily birds of prey. And my work is a mixture of somewhat abstract and highly representational birds of prey. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm doing what I love to do.
Since I was old enough to remember things, I remember he is an amazing artist. Like, the pictures he drew when he was small kind of inspired me to get into like drawing and stuff. But it's not just sculpture is what you've landed on recently, right? But you've done oil painting. You've done just like about everything.
Yeah. Bronze. Bronze is kind of where I got into sculpture. And then I moved from there into stone. And I've only been doing stone for maybe 6 or 7 years.
That's awesome. Can you tell us like what your most recent project was?
My most recent project this week was I'm working on a barred owl in limestone, and it is for a show in Boise, Idaho on August 6th. It'll be in conjunction with the World Center for Birds of Prey in Boise, Idaho.
It's so cool to see you growing up and the other careers that you've had, and then like finally landing on the thing that you do so well.
This is what I've always wanted to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're like really into wildlife. Like, I don't know a lot of people that hunt as much as you or know as much about wildlife as you do. And I think that's going to come into play with the weird stories that you have for us.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about titling this one Weird Wyoming.
I like that.
Because these are crazy stories, and I can't wait for you to tell everybody.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Weird Wyoming. Can you give us an overview? Like, these things that you're going to tell us kind of happened around in the same spot, right?
Right. Yeah.
Can you give us like a general, you don't have to tell us like right where your hunting spot is, but
sure,
about the area and maybe the atmosphere and the vibe that you felt when you're there?
Sure. I hunt in the Wind River Mountains, which is central Wyoming, a little bit west of center, and just slightly south of the Wind River Indian Reservation. And it is very wild, rugged country. There's not a lot of access, especially where we go in to hunt elk and mule deer. And so it's very remote, very rugged. I've been hunting there for 25 years, and I've only seen people in there twice.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's way back in there.
It is way back in there, but more than that, there's no access. So it's lots of deadfall, lots of elevation change, hiking, long distances to get into where we hunt.
So a lot of people are probably like, it's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
Going back in there.
They know it's there. It's not worth it.
But there's really good elk in there.
Decent elk.
Because nobody goes in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were telling me earlier about like just the atmosphere back in there is different.
Yeah, I discovered this when I was in my late 20s. And what struck me about that area is it just feels old. There's something about it that feels primal, and you always feel like you're being watched in there. The timber is a little bit different than what you would typically see in Wyoming. It's old timber, old stands. There's some old log cabins in there from earlier days when the pioneers used to bring tourists in from Chicago and go back there fishing. And they had a series of cabins where they would stash supplies for the tourists on their way in and out of those lakes.
Wow.
Yeah, neat country.
You told me like an interesting fact. The guy that started that, what was his name?
Stub Farlow.
Stub Farlow. And if you look at like the Wyoming license plate the Wyoming mascot, their logo.
Which is called Steamboat.
Is the bucking bronco, right?
Right.
And that is Stub Farlow.
Supposedly Stub Farlow.
That's awesome.
On that horse, yeah. And the horse's name was Steamboat.
Steamboat.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Hudson and I have talked about this too. We feel like there's certain places where you go and you can feel something different about it, something watching you, just a different vibe.
Yes.
Even Morgan has talked about this, and people call them like thin places where like you're maybe closer to a different dimension than you are regularly. Is that kind of what it feels like?
That's a good description of how I feel when I'm back there. I love going back there because I just feel like I'm tapping into the wildest, most alive place that I've ever been.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you get that vibe. It seems ancient to you.
It does.
But you've also had encounters. And this one might not be paranormal really, but Can you tell the story about when you and your friend were there when the clouds rolled in?
Oh, sure. Yeah, this was probably 20 years ago. We were hunting up in the top of a basin, not very far from timberline, so just below timberline. There was a big meadow. And the weather started changing. Not that there was a system blowing in, but I noticed the clouds coming down from above. And there was no movement of air. The air just felt like it was getting thick. And a change in humidity, and it was cooling off, but I noticed the clouds just moving down toward us. And we were watching a large meadow toward evening, hoping that elk would move into that meadow. And it was so still, and the clouds just kind of rested about 100 feet above us. And there would be, these poofs of air would come down out of the clouds with pushing steam downward toward this meadow. And then it would hit the grass in the meadow, and you would just see kind of the steam come up off the meadow.
Poof.
But you would see these like streams of air with cloud in them come down and hit the meadow. And it was, I remember looking at it thinking, this is just, I've never seen anything I've never experienced
what is going
anything
on?
like this. What is happening? And that same day, a large system moved into the area where we lived. And there was a huge hailstorm. And that hailstorm, there were dead birds in our front yard that just, the hail knocked them out of the trees. It blew our back door open, and there was hail laying in our dining room where it had pushed that door open.
That is crazy. Like, how big of hail was it?
Crazy storm. I think, it was probably just an inch.
Man, it must have been like flying to kill birds.
Right. Yeah.
Like it had energy behind it.
Yeah. A lot of pressure.
And we think we get bad weather in Montana.
Yeah.
Like we've never, well, not on this side of the mountains. We don't get
Right.
weather like
You're
that.
a little protected on this side.
Probably on the east side, but
Right.
that's crazy. So was it hail, like hailstones coming through that was pushing that air down, or what was it?
No, it was just little bursts of air.
That is so weird.
Yeah, it was neat.
Huh. Okay, so that's just the neat. We'll call that the atmospheric, or what do you call that? Climate story?
Sure.
Weather story?
Yeah.
Let's get into like some of the weirder things.
Okay.
You were just telling me about a time that you and your son,
Yes.
were you hunting or were you hiking?
We were hunting.
Can you tell that story?
Yeah. We had a hunting mishap. And we were going down a rocky ridge following a bull. And that bull just kept going ahead of us. We were able to keep on picking up his trail. And he dove down into a deep canyon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been in that canyon probably 20 years ago, but I hadn't been there since. So we went down into that canyon and started hiking back up the basin upstream. The stream was on our left, and we were headed back up into the higher country. And it's a long canyon. Back in the pioneer days, there had been trails that went through there from the valley below.
Mm-hmm.
And those trails are now disappearing. And so you'd find them and lose them, kind of hide and seek kind of trails. And I kept thinking I was hearing voices. And I thought that there was someone coming in behind us, maybe someone on horseback,
Mm-hmm.
because it sounded like they were catching up to us pretty fast.
Like the voices kept getting louder, like they were coming up behind you?
Yeah, definitely a man's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounded a little bit like Native American words, like what you might hear in a powwow music.
Okay.
And sometimes it sounded like it was singing.
Oh, was it like a chant?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And so we stopped, and we were hoping that they would just catch up to us and we'd let them pass.
Yeah.
And no one ever caught up. And then we walked up the valley a little further, and we would just keep hearing this man's voice.
And your son was hearing it too?
Yes. Yeah, my son was hearing it too.
Weird.
And that happened for probably over the course of a mile or more.
Really?
Yeah.
And then did it stop abruptly, or was it just like?
Yes, it did.
It was
Yeah, we
just
stopped at a spring where back when I was younger, we used to fill up our water bottles
Mm-hmm.
out of that spring. And I found that spring again. Hadn't seen it in many, many years. And so we filled up our water bottles and just kind of refreshed ourselves and rested. And at that time, we never heard it again.
Man, that gives me chills.
Well, it's neat. It's a neat area. And somehow I feel in there like I'm kind of connecting to the past.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the stone tape theory?
No.
People have different theories of what ghosts are, right? And one of the theories is when something highly emotional happens in a certain area, the matter around you can like absorb that energy, and then it replays it. So like if someone says every night at 12 p.m. or 12 a.m., this ghost lady walks through a saloon, but she doesn't look at you, she doesn't interact with you or anything, but people see her and she's always doing the same thing. They call that, maybe that's the stone tape theory, that it absorbed it. What do you think about that?
Could be.
I mean, that is a place where Native Americans were. There was a big population of Native Americans there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And certainly something about the area feels different to me, and always did. The first time I went in there, which would have been in the late 90s, maybe mid 90s, actually, I felt it then.
Mm-hmm. And you just can't like put your finger on it, but it's different.
It's different.
Ugh.
And yet I love it. I love being back there
Yeah. Because you're crazy.
because I'm crazy.
Okay. So the second story that you have,
Yes,
was this before or after that weird encounter?
before.
Can you tell us that one?
Yes. So this was probably 5 or 6 years ago. It was my
Okay.
son and I.
Mm-hmm.
We had been hunting hard, and some years the elk are just nowhere to be found. So you hunt a lot harder than other times. This was one of those years where the hunting was just not great. And you spend all day out there just calling and searching and tracking and looking. And we'd had a long day. We had our camp set up on a saddle
Mm-hmm.
near where we park our four-wheelers. So it wasn't one of the times that we hike in deep.
It was kind of like your base camp area.
Our base camp.
Okay.
And where that saddle is, you can hear, there are four-wheelers that come through. Usually we'll hear or see a couple of four-wheelers every season
Mm-hmm.
at that base camp. And we always are able to hear them because the road is very long before it gets to our saddle.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were going to bed. For some reason, I didn't fall asleep right away. So I laid there awake on my back, just thinking about the day. It was very quiet. I remember there wasn't any wind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's rare.
Yeah,
And-
Wyoming has wind.
Wyoming has wind.
You're in the Wind River Range.
Yes. And there was none. And I remember hearing a whistle that was repetitive. It sounded like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And then there was a series of 3 knocks.
Mm-hmm.
It sounded like someone hitting a tree with sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a very scientific, naturalistic mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if I could picture something that might have been, I could picture it being a barn owl that landed in the tree about 100 yards, maybe 120 yards away from us, and landed on a loose branch, a widowmaker that's hanging there,
Mm-hmm.
and its weight caused that branch to swing and bonk that tree 3 times. That's what I'm picturing in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
About the same time, I hear the same noise closer to our camp. I'm going to say 20 to 30 yards away.
The whistle,
Shh, shh,
even closer.
shh. And then the one downhill, over 100 yards away, answering it.
So they were whistling back and forth.
And I don't remember the exact sequence, it was some years ago now, but there were other knocks on the trees dispersed with this weird whistling sound. And I'm thinking that my son is sleeping.
Okay.
We hadn't talked for a long time. So I'm assuming that he's fast asleep. So I'm laying there just trying to figure out, okay, what is this that I'm hearing? What could that have possibly been? And I give it a couple of minutes, and my son says, "Dad, are you hearing this?" And then I realized that I wasn't the only one hearing
Mm-hmm.
all the craziness going on around us. We both whispered a few more things back and forth, but we were very quiet and we did not go out and investigate.
Mm-hmm.
I think both of us knew that it was something different
Yeah.
than normal.
Yeah.
The next morning, we did go out and look for tracks, and a herd of elk had walked through
Really?
our camp on the same side of the tent as
Mhm.
where we heard the noises. I've been around elk my whole life. I know what sounds elk make. They make a lot of noises,
Yeah.
but they do not do that little whispery whistle.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact. But there were elk tracks going through there. So elk had sometime during the night, a herd had moved through there.
That's interesting.
It is.
So when you were hearing 2 different whistles,
Yes.
you were hearing 2 different knocks, like they were coming from different locations?
From 2 different locations, very distinct. Yeah, one was further away and downhill, and then one was not very far away from us.
And were they like slamming the tree?
I would not say they were slamming the tree.
Was it? Because a lot of them are.
Clearly a knock, though. You know, another thing that I have thought about many times is when a bull is walking through the trees, sometimes his antlers will bump the trees.
Mm-hmm.
But I know what that sounds like because I've heard that many times, and it is a different tone. It doesn't sound like a stick hitting a tree.
Yeah.
It's a deeper, more resonant sound, and it's not rhythmic.
Right.
There's usually a crushing, rubbing sound as they're walking through the brush, and then they might accidentally bonk a tree. Again, you have that resonant kind of deeper vibration in an antler, and that's just not what a stick sounds like.
Yeah. And this suggests intelligent communication.
Something was communicating.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was.
Well, you do know that a lot of not UFO, Bigfoot encounters start off with tree knocking. I mean, that's a huge, like a lot of people know about the tree knocks.
And I myself did not. It was actually Jonah, my son, who told me about the tree knocks.
He knew about it.
Which surprised me.
Yeah.
That tree knocks are evidently a part of Bigfoot experiences.
Yeah, there's people that will go out and just knock on trees to try to get a reply.
Yeah.
But we're talking about this place, which is so far out that a lot of people don't even go there.
No.
And I don't know if a lot of people know if they've spent a lot of time in the wilderness, but when you're in the mountains, there's no hum of cars. There's no, like, all you can hear really is the wind and bird calls or whatever. When there is a vehicle coming toward you, you hear it from miles away.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about a quad or a 4-wheeler or something, you hear that even better than you do a car.
Yeah.
You could even hear a horse clopping up a trail.
Because we have, our soil is rock.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could always hear a horse coming from quite a distance. I've often thought about what a strange experience that was.
Mm-hmm. That is crazy. I don't know if I could have stayed knowing what I know about, like you were ignorant of the tree knocking thing, right? So having known that, if that had happened, I would be like, okay, we have to get to the car now. But a lot of people, when they have a Bigfoot encounter, if that's what this was, they report having a sudden fear come over them, like an unreasonable fear for no reason. Did any of that happen when you were out there? Did you feel fearful before, like when you were sleeping or getting ready to go to bed? Was anything like that?
I did not. I felt strange knowing that whatever the two things were, they were communicating back and forth intentionally.
Right.
That had me a little freaked out.
Yeah.
And it felt like they were communicating back and forth because our campsite was there.
Mm-hmm. Like they're talking about you.
Yes.
And
that is honestly what that felt like.
And they want you to know that they're there. Because, I mean, they're not being sneaky, hitting a tree.
And yet they weren't being loud either.
It's just kind of like a little back and forth.
It sounded like they were communicating with each other clearly.
Mm-hmm.
But they were not wanting us to be fully aware of their presence.
That's crazy.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, and I mean, Hudson said this, I think, once, but when you're talking about something so far back in the forest hitting something rhythmically,
yeah,
it can only be a couple things. A human or something else with opposable thumbs is out there.
Something as big as a branch hitting something like a tree. Yeah. It's not a woodpecker.
Very unsettling, even if it's a human. Because it's like, what is going on?
Kind of one of the last things you want to be out there is a human.
What is scarier, a human sneaking on you in the middle of the woods at night or a Bigfoot? I mean, I think they're both scary.
I think that is true. I think I would rather go with some form of wildlife communicating back and forth that were there than humans.
Yeah.
Because
they're up to no good.
Yes.
Question about kind of like normalcy bias. You said that when you heard it first, you were like, your analytical mind was like, it's got to be an owl that landed on a tree and the branch fell down and it hit it like 3 times. Do you think it's funny that when we're faced with stuff that we never knew existed, our brain immediately goes to like, how do I explain this away?
Well, I'm not sure at the moment that's what my brain was doing. I think at the moment, I'm into birds. I'm really into birds. I'm into owls.
It's your job.
I know a lot about owls. And so most birds do not make sounds at night, unless it's just very early in the morning, right before dawn. But we're talking about 10 at night. And birds are silent at 10 at night, except owls. It's the only bird, it's one of the only birds that makes sounds at night. So when I heard something that sounded like a screechy, whispery whistle, I'm automatically thinking, as someone who just is very naturalistic, what kind of bird would do that? And so even before the knocks happened, I'm going through my mind, racing through my mind, what kind of owl was that? And then the knocks happened, and then my brain is saying, well, wait a minute. I can understand owls making vocalizations that I've never heard before, but I cannot understand something knocking on a tree from the same location that those sounds were coming from. Another thing that I have learned since is that mountain lions have a large number of vocalizations, lots of whistles. We have had mountain lions up there. We actually, again, going back probably 20 years ago, we had a mountain lion actually urinate all over my side of the tent while I was sleeping in it. And that spray was coming through the tent, and
that is so disgusting.
I had to throw that tent away. It was
I bet,
completely ruined.
I bet it was stanky.
We've seen bears, we've experienced mountain lions. All those things are up there. One year we were up there, and we came across 9 sets of bear tracks.
Oh my word!
Yeah, two sets of grizzly tracks, separate. And 7 sets of black bear tracks. And we've been charged by black bears in that same area. So we're around the wildlife all the time. But back to the mountain lions, even though they can make all these crazy whistles and vocalizations, they don't knock on trees.
Exactly. And so have you ever heard another animal? Have you tried to place what that noise was? What's the closest animal you think it would come to?
Maybe a barn owl.
Barn owl. But not exactly. Like it didn't sound exactly like a barn owl. Not exactly,
because I've heard barn owls. I've been around barn owls. And it is, in fact, I was around a barn owl last week in Boise at the World Center for Birds of Prey. That is not exactly what I heard.
Some people, when they have a Bigfoot encounter, they say it sounded like a man trying to imitate an owl.
Oh.
So I don't know if that is kind of what it sounded like to you.
Whatever it was doing it down there. It was doing it up here.
Yeah. That's crazy.
The same little whistly thing.
I kind of wish I was there, but I really wish I wasn't there too. I'm glad I wasn't there.
It was a fun experience.
It's really funny because we were talking about doing this episode and all of the weird things that happened to you. And your first story about hearing the voice in the woods reminded me of where we grew up in northwest Montana here. When we moved here from Oregon, our first house was in the woods, kind of at the base of some mountains, right?
Yeah.
And it was pretty wild when we had first moved there in 1980. There wasn't a lot of people out there. And we had 3 acres, and when you would go through the backyard all the way to the end of the property line, there was this old road. We just called it the old road that wound through the forest.
Yes.
And every time I would go to that old road, I would get the feeling that there was someone standing right behind me watching me. And our first episode was about how haunted that house was.
Yeah.
And my experience at that house. And one time Shay and I were out, my other brother, were out there playing on the old road.
Yeah.
And we could hear a man's voice in the woods. And I mean, our cousins lived through the woods. You know, my aunt and uncle lived through the woods. There were people that lived out there, but it wasn't, you could never make out what they were saying. You couldn't like define what the words were. You felt like you were being watched. You could hear somebody talking. It was just the most unsettling place on that property for me to be in the woods. And that reminded me of it and the discussion that you and I had. And I said, why don't you tell me about all the weird stuff that happened to you at that house?
Yeah.
And you told me,
I don't remember any weird stuff.
Nothing weird happened with you.
I don't remember any.
That is so strange because a little bit happened to Shay.
Yeah.
I don't know about Ryan, my other older brother.
Right.
But to me, all kinds of weird stuff happened. And to Mom,
yeah,
all kinds of weird stuff happened. But it's just interesting. We have kind of an age gap. We're 9 years apart.
Right.
And we've also talked about how children, for some reason, have more interactions with supernatural stuff than older people do.
Right.
So I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think that played a part in it?
I think it very well may have played a part in it. Maybe your imagination was really wanting to experience things or understand them or fear-based.
Yeah.
Terrified that there was something going on. I spent a lot of time in those woods.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm just really closely connected to nature. And so I was exploring, the trees and the plants and the wildlife. And
do you remember playing Wild Man?
I remember playing Wild Man.
Let me tell everybody how Wild Man went. Rick would say, do you guys want to play Wild Man? And we'd be like, sure. And we would just be walking through the woods with Rick. He's taking us somewhere, and then he would take off running and leave us out there, and we had no idea where we were. But I'm pretty sure you circled back around and were sneaking on us.
Your job was always to find me.
Yeah.
But you never found me.
No.
So many times you guys walked right past me. I could have reached out and grabbed your legs.
That's hilarious.
I was just laying down, hiding in the woods.
Mm-hmm. That was fun.
Yeah.
It was scary, but it was fun. Well, thank you so much for coming and giving us some crazy, weird Wyoming stories.
No, it was fun.
I want people to find out where they can look at your artwork.
Okay.
How can they see what you do?
I have a website.
Mm-hmm.
It's richardburkefineart.com. And I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
richard.burke.sculptor.
Awesome.
Yeah.
People need to see.
Richard
You got to
Burke
see what he
Sculptor.
does. It's stinking amazing. Didn't you make some birds for like the state of Wyoming or one of the? It wasn't the state. It was a city. Weren't you commissioned?
I have, yes, I have several pieces out. It's called public art. So it's on main streets and things.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have a piece in Pinedale, which was commissioned. And so that's the first edition of that piece. The second one is in Colorado. And then I have 4 pieces in Sheridan, Wyoming, 2 bronzes and 2 stone sculptures. And they're on the historic main street of Sheridan, Wyoming.
That's awesome.
And all 4 of those are permanent.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Are they bronze?
2 are bronze,
Okay.
2 are stone.
2 are stone.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you again.
Yeah, it's fun.
I wish we had more time.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. If you have ever been sleeping in the woods in the backcountry and you've heard something that kind of sounds like an owl but wasn't, and then you hear tree knocks, we want to hear about it at sincerelysupernatural@gmail.com. Send us your stories and let us know if you want us to talk about it on the show. All right, we end every show with 6 shooters. You ready?
I'm ready.
Draw. Bye.